That's why the passage was written in the first place, to rebuke spiritual ignorance. But embedded in that rebuke is the implied truth that growth and maturity takes time. Hebrews 5 verse 12 begins, "And when for the time you ought to be teachers, you have need of someone to teach you again the first principles." Well, he's rebuking them for not growing as they should, but in the process of that rebuke, he does indicate that it does take time to become mature. Now, the people to whom he was writing had had sufficient amount of time that they should have grown more than they had, and so he's rebuking them for that. But he says, growth takes time, when for the time you ought to be somewhere else. Growth does take time. And, it takes time to learn what God expects. It takes time to figure out what areas of one's own life need attention and need changing. It takes time to break bad habits and replace them with good habits. I read different things about habits and breaking them, and I read, some people say it takes 30 days, 30 days consistently of not missing, where you start a practice and you do it consistently for 30 days straight, and that helps to establish a good habit. Well, I don't know if that's true in every case or not. But what I do know is this, everyone agrees that stopping bad habits and creating good habits is something that takes time. So give yourself time. Don't give up simply because after the first couple of days you don't have it all figured out, and because after the first few days you don't have it all set and fixed and changed. Work on it. And that really leads to another point about the need for stamina. Just remember that it takes time, but also it takes repetition. Repeating something over and over again helps to develop good habits and helps to break bad ones. When you're starting any kind of new venture, mistakes are common and mistakes are to be expected. So don't give up. Keep repeating the things that you need to do. And repetition can help to create this spiritual stamina that we all need. Just as a personal example, not too long ago, I decided that I needed to brush up on some of my Greek studies that I went through when I was training to be a preacher. The language of the New Testament that it was originally written in was Greek, and so I had some training in that, not a lot of training. I am by no means a scholar of the Greek language by any stretch of that word. But I did learn some, and when I decided that I needed to kind of brush up on some of that, as I started restudying it, I came to realize how much of what I had learned previously I didn't remember. And the reason why I didn't was because I had not repeated. I had not kept up with the repetition, like of reading the language and pronouncing the words in the other language, and all of those things that it takes repetition to develop good habits in. I wasn't going through the repetitive process, and so I lost it. So stamina, staying power, involves repetition. If you're going to keep what you've grasped, you got to keep repeating it. And so as you look to make positive change, and you get into the changes you're trying to make, and you get into it a few days, don't think that you're done. You've got to keep repeating the process so that you develop those habits like you would like to have them. And we have to keep reminding ourselves of the principles that we want to apply. If you haven't been living your life every day with thoughts about the Golden Rule, for example, as a part of your process, your thought processes each day, then you're going to have to repeat to yourself the fact that you need to think about the Golden Rule. Repetition will keep it foremost in your mind, and it'll at some point become second nature to you. There are a lot of ways that you can remind yourself of things. Let's just take the Golden Rule, for example. Let's say that that's the area of your life that you need to work on. And so you want to do something positive for somebody every day. That's going to be your way to establish a good habit of practicing the Golden Rule, treating others the way you want to be treated. How can you go about reminding yourself every day to do something good for someone? Well, if you work in front of a computer, you can put your screensaver on your computer and have it show the words Matthew 7:12 or the Golden Rule or something like that. That at some point during your day, when your screensaver comes on, you're going to see that. Most everyone carries a cellular phone these days. Put a reminder on your cell phone, a little alarm that's going to go off at some point every day, and that alarm's going to remind you, I need to do something good for somebody. I need to practice the Golden Rule today and develop that habit. Other people like to use sticky notes. They'll put sticky notes all over. They'll put it on their mirror. They'll put it in their car. They'll put it in their office somewhere, someplace where you can see it. There are a lot of things that we can do that that can remind us of the principles that we need to apply. That's the need that we have for stamina, for staying power. And without that staying power and stamina, we can actually regress and take steps backward. Remember Hebrews 5. The writer said, you have need of someone to teach you again the first principles of the oracles of God. Hebrews 5:12. The same thing happened to me with my Greek studies. I'd taken backward steps because I had not maintained a good study habit in that area. In Revelation 2, verses 4 and 5, to the church at Ephesus, Jesus said, remember from whence you've fallen, and repent and do the first works. Do the works you did at first. You see, these Christians had not matured like they should, to the degree that there were some of the first works, some of the basic principles that they had forgotten and needed to go back and redo those. So there's a great need for stamina, a great need for endurance. But now let's turn our attention to how we maintain this endurance. How do we keep our stamina? Let me offer you just a few thoughts in that regard. Number one, practice self-control. Practice self-control every day. There's a connection between endurance and self-control. It's seen in 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 6. As Peter is listing the Christian graces, things that we need to add to our lives, to your knowledge, temperance, that's self-control, and to your self-control, patience or endurance. There's a connection between self-control and endurance. See, self-control that is exercised and practiced daily produces endurance in the long run. So take baby steps. If it's, again, we're using the Golden Rule as an example, if that's the area of your weakness, then do something every day that helps you with that. All right, take baby steps. Just do one thing every day that helps you in that area. If your problem area is personal responsibility, maybe you have a problem with that. Maybe you have developed a habit of always blaming somebody else for things that you do. Well, then work on that. Do something every day. Practice some bit of self-control every day, something that forces you to take responsibility for your actions. Take a few minutes each day to acknowledge your responsibility to God. Take time every day to remind yourself, you know what, I'm responsible for my actions. I'm responsible for what I do today. Mention it in prayer to God. Acknowledge to God the fact that you understand and know that you are going to be held responsible for the actions that you do that day. And so, it takes self-control to do that. It takes self-control to set aside that time each day to recognize and acknowledge your responsibility. It takes self-control each day to do something positive for someone. And as you practice self-control on a daily basis, taking baby steps, eventually those baby steps will get bigger, and what it takes special thought to do today will become second nature to you at some point in the future. That's how you change your bad habits. Then I'd encourage you as well to associate with people of like mind. If you want endurance and staying power, then surround yourself. We talked about this in a previous lesson, but it applies here too. Surround yourself with people who share your same goals. Develop some accountability with someone else, some personal accountability, and check on